In recent years, anime has exploded in popularity to mixed results. But a common complaint of the medium is how the majority of stories are focused on teenagers rather than adults. This comes from a variety of points of interest and discussion with differing levels of validity. However, I'm not here to talk to you guys about this debate, but rather say that recently a friend of mine got me hooked on an adult anime love story that all of you want. Solo Camping for Two is a fun anime about camping. We start with the main character, Gen. He camps by himself and enjoys the great outdoors and getting away from it all to relax and give himself room to breathe, as many do. On one such outing, he comes back to his campsite to find a woman drying herself off by his fire with her pants down. After some back and forth with "what are you doing here, why don't you have pants," and other such valid questions, Gen comes to terms with a new camper by the name of Shizuku. Shizuku herself is a fish out of water, or more like a dog in a river given the first episode's plot. She was trying out camping, but due to not really knowing anyone that was a habitual camper, she had some hiccups on her first outing due to a disastrous first attempt, and with the threat that if she dies she'll come back and haunt again, Gen reluctantly decides to let her share his campfire and then sleep in his tent. After more poking and prodding, she convinces him to agree to let him take her solo camping for two, a modified way of camping that Gen normally does, but in a distant, mentor-like way, so that he can still have time alone, but be there to supervise Shizuku's efforts so that she can learn to responsibly camp by herself. What started as an astronomical problem, and some butting of heads and personalities, we start to see Shizuku and Gen go from disinterested strangers, to acquaintances, to friends, to flirty friends, with an obvious direction that will lead to more. The charm of this series is that these guys are adults, and it feels like they are adults. An issue many of us have as we watch the more popular anime is a complaint that we all have screamed at our screens before, and this problem isn't just an anime-only issue, just a bad writing issue. Sometimes we see people get into bad situations and end up screaming, "Just talk to them already!" But that isn't an issue with Solo Camping for Two. Many times we see the cast talk to each other, have moments of introspection that shows their headspace, and acknowledge that everyone feels awkward right now. But then someone works up the courage to walk over and start talking to each other to resolve the issue. Frequently in this show, we see adults get into awkward situations that feel both natural and normal, and then act like adults and talk things out. Maybe it takes a few minutes to set things up before someone works up the courage to talk, but that's also normal, especially with introverts and antisocial people. On this merit alone, I would recommend that you watch this anime, specifically because it's just that good in having mature people interact with each other, and sometimes call themselves out for being silly. There's self-reflection, self-awareness, and a level of relatability in how the cast interact with each other throughout the story that just feels real. Now, when putting together a story based on a hobby or a lifestyle, it can be easy to tell when the author is doing it to chase a trend, if it's a decently researched piece, or if the author is an autist and this is their hyperfixation. This always comes across as people on the outside of the hobby or lifestyle will like a main series that's just trend chasing, but then people who are more knowledgeable on the subject will be more quick to critique and criticize any and all issues on the given subject, especially if there's just bad information. In this regard, I can happily say Solo Camping for Two is a well-researched and informative show. When watching one episode with my friend, who first recommended the series to me, we made the joke that the author had to work at Japanese REI or some other store like Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops, because the details when Gen is explaining camping gear are very accurate. Now, of course, he also goes into details of the Japanese camping culture and experience, which I have zero experience in being an American, so I can't talk too much on the validity of that. But when discussing how to build a campfire, the different styles of fire starters, tent styles, and equipment packing, he's extremely informative. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Camping is a hobby everyone and their grandma has done here, and I did work in a search and rescue team for a year. It was always super interesting when Gen would start talking about camping gear. As you can tell, the author was intimately aware of the gear they were talking about, but seemed to have enough info or experience that it seemed as if they'd used all of that gear that is explained in the series. Hence, the joke that the author probably worked in a camping store of some kind, or at the very least, has been camping for years on end. There's a level of sincere knowledge that the show can express at times with how camping works, that even if you know what the gear is, like I knew about the tents, it feels like a friend explaining camping to a newcomer around a campfire when you're out with your buddies on a trip. There's a touch of human experience in these descriptions that comes from actual experience, and not just an infomercial by Phil Swift. So a show that is about adults, for adults, with actual informative experience evident in the writer's story. What more can I glaze about this anime? Well, the character progression itself. You see, this is a love story, and for a love story to work, we need to see how two different people can come together and emotionally evolve and grow. In the case of Gen, it takes a while, but as time goes on and the episodes roll, as Gen is opening up more to Shizuku, we, the audience, are also shown his past life as he reflects on it. Gen is 34. He's been an adult for a long time. When he was a teenager, his father died. He started camping by himself to chase the feeling of when he was outdoors camping with his father, and thus solo camping became his only way to escape because he wanted to be alone with his thoughts and the memory of his father. Even when he had a girlfriend while in his 20s, he never stopped her from chasing her dreams. But because of his relationship with camping, he never included her in his camping trips, as he couldn't fathom bringing someone else with him. And she was respectful of that boundary and distance, but inevitably it caused them to split apart. However, with Shizuku butting into his life, he was confronted with the reality that he needed to let people in. Not everyone, but he needed to let some people in, as others can enrich your life. We even see how Gen's previous relationship ended and how those past emotions were later resolved. There's a level of emotional maturity that he progresses as he spends time with Shizuku. She doesn't tear down his walls necessarily, but she did install a window to let in some light and fresh air. Gen as a protagonist is very thoughtful and matter of fact. He's not a tease, not a prankster by nature. He's a straightforward, honest guy with some familial issues that he has to work through. It's not that he's a bad guy, but understandably, he has some things to work on as an individual. And this series ensures that we see how he tackles this as his relationship grows with Shizuku, and he begins to open up just a little bit. It's a good reminder to anyone that as we grow older, we can still have things to work out in our personal lives. We are not perfect, but can always do better day by day. And this story shows how that can naturally happen in the right circumstances. It's a thoughtful dissection of how each character can be, but it mostly focuses on Gen's perspective. There's a meaningful type of maturity in this series that is lacking in most others, and I can't recommend the series enough because of it. On the final part of why you should watch this, let's talk about music. Now, the first opening is nice. It's both calming and inviting. However, the real gold, the do not skip or I will skin you in front of your mother, is the second opening. Both of the openings are really good for this series. Few anime I can say have perfect opening theme songs, but as far as these go, they are phenomenal. Both of the openings are super good, as they set the pace for the story arcs we are in, both in words and tone. The first one has a fresh feeling, like the beginning of something new. You can almost smell the chilled dewdrops of a spring morning from a camping trip as you listen to it. This is a show about camping, so having a cozy camping vibe is all the more inviting to relax and bring you into the story each time an episode starts up. It has great imagery, and it really sets up the beginning focus of the story and the initial arc. The one I want to gush more about is the second one, which opens up with a more cheery, love-set tone. By going from a calm, camp-focused tone to this is the perfect setup to show that the story isn't just about camping anymore, but how two people fell in love while camping together. The song is called Futari de Iyoka by Hokuto. Yes, there will be a link in the description to the music video. Watch it! The song is more cheery, and is a great opener with the lyrics being a perfect match for how Gen sees people after meeting Shizuku. He was a loner. He got in, got out, and had some relationships. but he never did much besides that, as camping was always his thing. Solo camping, at that. But now Shizuku is inviting him into a different world, where you can still enjoy alone time, but maybe always being alone isn't a good thing. Maybe being a bit more out there, being around other people, opening up just enough, can make a world of difference that makes your time together all that much better. The song is amazing. It sets up the change from two cold strangers camping together to how two people slowly fell in love as they enjoyed a hobby together, and how it brings them closer with everyone else. I cannot stress just how amazing this easygoing love story is. If you like anime or aren't all that interested in anime as a medium but like camping, I cannot stress just how great this show is. It's got the beloved 24-episode Season 1 treatment, and I need all of you to watch it so we can shoot for Season 2. Please, I am begging you. Actually, no, I am no longer begging you. This is a threat. Watch it. It's a brilliant but mature series that feels like it was made by an adult, for an adult audience. And when I say that, I mean that the adults act like adults. There aren't a lot of teenage sex jokes that many complain about that are common in anime, because in this series it doesn't need tits to keep you focused on the dialogue and thoughts of the characters it presents. From different camping foods to gush over and recipes to steal, to how to build a campfire and choose the tent style you want to build and do yourself. This anime has a lot to say, which means it doesn't need to pretend it's anything more than a love story between campers. If you have time or interest in a mature love story that's focused on emotions and not necessarily sex, then I can't think of much outside of Jane Austen's writings that I could recommend as highly as I do Solo Camping for Two. However, I am a degenerate, no one cares, and I hope you all have a good day. No, still here? Awesome, thank you. Well, don't forget, if you use code QUAIL, you can get 10% off your entire order at poggerslifestyle.com, which does support me so that I can continue to make videos while getting you a good tasting drink. I am on my warpath to try and make a new flavor called Feisty Latina, so if any and all sales, or even just looking at the website, really just helps me a lot. Until then, I'm working on getting more materials for my streams, and I also need to work on my script for my Metroid Prime 4 review, because boy do I have a lot to say on that game. But until then, I do hope you take care, and I'll see you whenever I see you next.